Get started. All right, well, good morning, students. Thank you for joining us today. We are entering into the last few days of our virtual internship program, and today we're kind of wrapping up with our different company panels this morning and this afternoon. And I am excited to have the organization Strike here with us. Some of you might have heard of them, or you may have seen their logo around, but they are a local energy company here in the Woodlands and great supporters of EfTA. They normally take in-person interns every summer, and whenever we can get back to doing that, hopefully if you have siblings, we can, this is an organization that they can work with in the future. We are, again, this is one of our company panels. If you've been on our panels before, and many of you, all of your names are beginning to look familiar, so you've done this once or twice with us. We will have our panel introduce themselves, and then we'll jump into our Q&A time. You'll be able to submit your questions via the Q&A. If you like, look at the bottom bar of your Zoom. There's the Q&A, there's the chat, or there's the raise your hand feature. Right now, we cannot see you, but once it's time for you to ask your question, I'll bring you over, ask you to unmute. You'll ask your question, then you'll go back to the attendee pool. So with that, that's kind of our housekeeping things. I will now turn it over to our panel of experts to introduce themselves while you guys start to think of all of your questions. So with that, I will turn it over to Brian.
Good morning, everybody. My name is Brian Rohde. I'm a director in our engineering, procurement, construction team here at Strike. I'm a bit more on the technical side for our company, kind of working with our engineers, our procurement team, and our construction folks out in the field to execute projects for our clients. Like I did say, I'm more on the technical side, so I do have a degree in mechanical engineering from Texas Tech University. I've been in the oil and gas industry here now going on 13 years. So it's been a good ride so far, and I'm looking forward to continuing and answering any questions you guys might have today.
Great, thank you, Brian. All right, I'll turn it over to Courtney.
Okay, sorry.
Yes.
Hi, I'm Courtney Blackburn. I am the Accounts Payable Manager at Strike. I've been with the company 8 years. My story is actually a little different. I didn't have a college degree. I got in based on experience. I was married young, military wife, and worked in a lot of offices and banks, and eventually worked my way up to learning accounts payable. And I've been doing this for probably about 12 or 13 years, and I've been at Strike for 8. And I was just promoted to accounts payable manager just a couple of weeks ago. So college is wonderful, and I didn't choose that route, but my daughter is in college right now, and she is going for her master's. So I think that, both routes are great, but I think college is amazing.
Great, thank you, Courtney. Okay, Lisa.
Morning, everyone. My name is Lisa Barraza. I am a contract control specialist here at Strike. I've been with the company 4 years. So I work in our in-house legal department. And in-house just means we have lawyers that work directly for the company. We don't hire them externally. So I work under support for 2 main lawyers, but a total of 5. And very similar to Courtney, I actually don't have any formal college degree. I too just learned the oil and gas industry. I have about 10 years experience, and I actually came from the engineering side of things. From my previous employer, I did offshore engineering, dock control for National Oil Varco for a long time. And then I came over to Strike and switched over into pipeline, and then completely switched gears into legal. So to Courtney's point again, college is a great option, but also knowing what fits best for you and your interests is also good to know as well. So I think there's just, more than one way to get to where you want to be in life. So I think that's important to understand about yourself personally. So thanks for having me here.
Wonderful. Thank you, Lisa. All right, Patrick.
Hey, good morning. My name is Patrick Nelson. I am a project estimator and project manager for Bolt, which is the electrical and instrumentation side of Strike. Went to school at U of H, studied petroleum land management, and I've been in the oil and gas industry for about 12 years. So in my role, what I do is I put a price to the different projects that come in. And then if we're awarded them, then I help execute them. So similar to Brian, kind of more on the technical side. And I'd say to do what I'm doing, you don't necessarily need a college degree, but for me, it was a really good foot in the door. My background is not necessarily before. I actually went back to U of H about 10 years ago. And before that, I studied kinesiology, which was exercise science. And I had a fitness business and successful in my own right. But whenever I met my wife, I realized that I wanted more of a career. And so I jumped into this. So as far as kind of path moving kind of forward and what you guys can do, agreed. It's not necessarily one rigid kind of one trail. It can definitely break off and you can diversify. And just as long as you're setting your goals and you're moving forward, I think you can accomplish a lot and do a lot. And I love the industry that I'm in, and it's a lot of fun. So I appreciate you guys having me on.
Wonderful. Thank you, Patrick. And Tiffany.
Good morning. My name is Tiffany Everhard, and I work in project support department. My title is project support payroll lead. In our department, we're kind of like pre-payroll. We review a lot of data and information to make sure it's accurate. So basically whatever we review just goes straight to payroll and gets processed. In our department, we also invoice clients. I'm currently learning to invoice. I've been here 4 years, and before our department was split kind of into separate areas and you just did your area, but right now we're all being cross-trained. So I'm in week 2 of invoicing, going good so far. I've been at Strike 4 years, and before Strike, I worked in management, actually at a massage and facial spa. I went to college briefly, but I do not have a college degree. College is important. It is still something I consider doing. I turned 30 in a few days, and college is still very much an option and on the table for me. Maybe, maybe not. I also like to work and enjoy my free time when I'm not working, so we'll see. Yeah, thank you for having me this morning.
Well, happy early birthday. Thank you.
Thank you.
All right. So there's already been some good little nuggets shared, students. So let's jump into our Q&A. And while you guys gather your thoughts and submit your questions, I'll go ahead and get us started. Panel, when questions come in, you don't have to answer every one, nor do you have to go in that same order that you introduced yourself. You can feel free to unmute and take it away. But I'll get us started. Can you guys share kind of what is your day-to-day look like? What kind of day-to-day operations for you within your role?
From my perspective, pretty much my day-to-day is really a lot of coordinating and managing individuals, trying to keep them on task and to kind of manage their deliverables and schedule for our projects that we have going on, as well as communicating and interfacing with our clients on project schedules, progress out in the field, any issues or concerns that come up kind of on a daily basis, as well as coordinating with our project managers that we have that also do communicate with our clients. And really, it's just an overall, for me, is an overall project oversight. I don't have any, one project that I'm working on. I kind of oversee a lot of our engineering operations and other projects that we are executing. So I kind of have a broad view of everything that we're working on.
I'll go next. This is Patrick. I guess my day-to-day is more or less not as high level as Brian's. I'm usually working on anywhere from 3 to 5 projects at a time. I have to be pretty flexible in my role. There's a side of my work that we do, and I would assume everybody on the call too, is you're kind of in sales. So you have to be willing to be flexible with the clients and whatever they need, you need to do your best to provide just a high level of workmanship. And so I dig into the projects and work with my team to put a good value to the projects so we can go out and sell them to the different end users, which can be an Exxon or an enterprise, and then be flexible with our project managers. So whenever they do need help or they do need assistance in any way, I can provide that, whether that's in person on site or just sitting behind a computer and giving them some sort of technical knowledge. But it's fun. You stay on your feet, and there's not much boredom involved with the job that I do. So that's about it.
I'll go next. My day-to-day is usually we get invoices in from the vendors that we have that have done work for us or that we bought supplies from and materials. And we are in charge of getting those invoices coded to the POs and then approved. And then once all the approvals are done, then we process those for payments. So we are, we're running every day with invoices to make sure that vendors are taken care of, to keep those vendor relationships going so that we don't have any issues. We don't have people leaving the jobs. We don't have, people not getting paid on time. So we work with the field a lot, the project managers a lot, and the division managers to make sure that all of the coding is correct and we have everything we need in order to pay the vendor.
I'll go ahead and go next. So my job is very fast paced, and also, like Brian, it's heavy on communication. I communicate a lot with internal groups, external operations, all the way down to just, field personnel, depending on what I need. So as a client contract specialist, I look over all of our contracts that we are looking to get into with clients. And basically our function in the legal department is to look over these contracts, see where our risk factors are contractually, and then try to mitigate risks, either just from things that we've learned in the past or things that we've learned with these specific clients, and or just the risk involved with the work itself that we're doing. So I look over all of our client contracts. I do the once-overs on all purchase orders that come through, just to make sure that the terms that are being admitted onto those purchase orders are also in alignment with whatever we've agreed to contractually. I look at all of the legal documentation. So basically anything from any other group that has any type of terminology that could be legally binding, it's sent to the legal department for review. And then just any other issues that possibly come up, even just in the field. There's just, anything that could possibly happen. They'll usually just notify me like, hey, this happened on site today, what do we have in the contract? Or if there was just a severe weather, and that's called something like a force majeure contractually, where we are obligated to notify our client. So we have the ability to reserve our rights, to have schedule extensions, which Brian can tell you, schedules are just extremely important. I mean, I guess all of us can tell you that schedules are extremely important in this industry, because in addition to just delivering our services efficiently, we also want to have a reputation for delivering them on time. So that's also extremely key. And it really takes this entire company working in tandem to deliver that. So that's basically my day-to-day. I do a lot of reading. I actually like to read, so that's a good thing. A lot of people probably wouldn't like my job. I literally just read the fine print on everything and just see if there's any type of risks involved in it. So I'll usually have the first look at it. My corporate counsel, which is our attorney, will have the second look at it. Then our managing counsel will have the final approval on it. And that's how we kind of move things through our process in my day-to-day.
So for me, my day-to-day here payroll process is weekly. So the beginning of the week, we're making sure all the information entered from the field is correct. There's a lot of field tickets entered from the field. So Monday and Tuesday are really busy days. There's a lot of communicating with the field admins. There's constantly corrections being made. There's just always a lot going on those days. Payroll processes on Wednesday, so we have a lot of deadlines we have to meet. Usually on Wednesday, we kind of shift gears and we pull reports. It's a lot of data review and reviewing information for accuracy. A lot of Mondays, I don't get up from my desk hardly at all because I'm just looking at my screens for hours straight. Usually by the end of the week is when we start invoicing a lot of information, because at that point it's been payroll processed and the invoices can be built, and all the field tickets we've reviewed, they get re-reviewed so they're 100% accurate, and then they get put on an invoice and get the invoices out to the clients. And so for me, my day-to-day kind of depends on what day of the week it is, but every week we kind of have a schedule that we follow for the most part. Weeks go by pretty quick because we stay pretty busy with communicating with field. And like I said, a lot of field tickets, a lot of invoices being built.
Great, thank you guys. So are you in the role or maybe not the role, but maybe the career path or something in which you envisioned yourself? So when you were in high school, so we have rising high school seniors through our internship program. They've selected kind of an industry of which they think that they're interested in, whether that be chemical engineering, legal, business. I think we've got about 15 different industries that they are individually focusing on. So they have an idea. They're not forced to know right now, but are you kind of doing the same thing or on the same path in which you had envisioned yourself when you were their age?
This is Brian. I know for me, I am. So I grew up in the Houston area. So obviously, the oil and gas industry is huge in the Houston kind of area and Gulf Coast. I knew when I was, a senior in high school, I wanted to be some kind of engineer. I was always very, hands-on type person. So mechanical engineering just kind of fit me. And obviously, going into the oil and gas business was just kind of, I guess, second nature to me, kind of because I've been around it for so long with my father and other folks that I've known throughout my, early life.
I would say for me, I am not in the industry that I envisioned. When I was 18, honestly, when I was 18, I had no idea what I wanted to do. And I just knew that I needed to go to school and kind of pursue something. So it took those 4 years, and then I started to gravitate towards the fitness industry, and it was fun and it was great, and I really enjoyed it, and I helped a lot of people. But whenever I actually met my wife, that was the big determining factor, that I wanted to do something more career-minded. And at that time, I did live here in the Woodlands, and the energy industry was a great industry to be in. So I knew that I wanted to be in it, and so I started pursuing that and just talking to a bunch of different people about different avenues of how to get in. And the option really was to go back to school and get some sort of degree in that. And I did that, and ended up kind of working my way up from a scheduling process, a planner. I had kind of a foot in the door, and kind of worked my way up from there over the past 10 years, and it's been really, really good. But yeah, to answer your question, I had no idea what I wanted to do when I was 18 years old. So
I wanted to be a nurse, and then I had a baby and realized that I was never going to make a good nurse because I would cry every time my daughter was hurt, or my husband was in the military every time he was hurt. And so I was like, I cannot be a nurse. So I started working at a bank and realized I liked numbers and, checks and balances. And so I started banking and then getting into the accounting side of things. So I would never have made a good nurse because I cry at the sight of blood, but that was what I wanted to be as long as I remember. And thankfully I chose numbers.
Yeah, I was in the same boat. If you asked me what I wanted to be in high school, I emphatically knew I was going to be a registered nurse one day. until I started the prereqs, and I'll never forget the day of doing IVs. I just almost fell on the floor. It was fake blood and I still could not handle it. I even tried to like desensitize myself doing like watching those like surgery documentaries like on TV, and nothing worked. Everything just made me nauseous. I was like, I can't do this. So yeah, I flipped around to a few different majors going to college, and then my focus shifted in my early 20s, and I got a job in sales where I was making like significantly more money than I'd ever made, and I thought that was the object of my affection, almost like this. Oh, I just want to make money. I can do this. And then again, like in my later 20s, I realized, money didn't make me happy. Yes, you need it. Hold on. Let me backtrack on that. You need to be able to sustain yourself financially. But I knew it didn't just make me happy. Like I was making, a great salary, but I was also giving up nights, weekends, holidays. And I realized that that was time that I really wanted with my family or my friends. And I wanted to be able to do Thanksgivings like with everybody, and it shifted again for me, and that's when I got into the oil and gas industry. I wanted a less hectic schedule, more time on the holidays with my family. So yeah, I definitely am not doing what I thought I was going to be doing at 18. So again, I think it's important to know that you can start something and you can try it. And if you just realize it's not for you, or it doesn't interest you, or it's not even something that brings you like any type of motivation, that you can shift and you can change and you can evolve and you can switch around to something else. Like that's okay. Like so that's my advice on that one. It's not always it's good to plan, but it's also okay to fail sometimes too, because that's where you really learn the most about yourself, is through your failures.
I would say I'm absolutely not in the field or area of work I ever thought I would be in. I grew up in North Carolina, so the oil and gas industry, I'm sure it exists there, but I never was really exposed to that in high school. In high school, I had no clue what I wanted to do. I changed my mind constantly. I thought about nursing. I thought about being a teacher. I thought about doing business management. I could not make up my mind, which is why I didn't go to college right away, because I didn't have any clue what I wanted to do. I would say even, 6 years ago, I didn't see myself in this industry. Before Strike, I worked in management. I worked at a massage and facial spa, which is a completely different world than oil and gas. I won't lie, I did love that job and I love that industry, but in order to grow and move up into that area, I would have to continue to sacrifice weekends and holidays and nights. And I'm a mom, and that was just something I didn't really want to do. So I'm thankful that I found this industry, but I never, ever would have imagined that I would work in Texas in the oil and gas industry. That was not on my radar.
Thank you guys. So we had a question come in from an anonymous attendee. What made you choose Strike over other oil companies?
Well, for me personally, I know in my interview process, when I started trying to transition out of offshore into like pipeline construction, I'm really of the mindset that just as much as an employer or a company interviews you for a position, you should be interviewing them at that time too. So I don't take it as a rhetorical question when at the end of an interview they say, do you have any questions for me? I absolutely always have questions. I had a list for Strike, and part of that was, what's your community engagement? And, here at Strike, we have a program called Campaign for Change that works heavily with the community around them. I asked what kind of charities that Strike donated to or, was affiliated with. And they had all kinds of things that they did, not only Habitat for Humanity, but with like Houston Food Bank, Montgomery Food Bank. They just had all kinds of volunteer opportunities. They even did like yearly mission trips down to Nicaragua, where they distributed food and clothing to just very, very severely underprivileged areas. So hearing about that really, struck a chord with me, in addition to the research that I did on strike, just looking at what they did, and the longevity of the employees that they had retained. You can kind of tell a lot about a company based on how long they keep their employees, right? Like, is there a high turnover rate, or is there like, do you have a core set of like leadership and management and support that just have been with the company for a long time? And there was, like my interview was a panel interview. So 4 people interviewed me and were firing questions at me. And then it was my turn and I asked them those questions like, how long have you been here? What made you gravitate to strike? What do you do? So I think that's important, to not only do your research about a company, but also have questions for them if and when you are interviewing for them. So for Strike, choosing them was, I thought it was a very close-knit family type of company. And I really, really appreciated all of the things that they did for their community, because I think that if you're given an opportunity to do good, you should, and they do. So that was important for me.
I would say for me, initially, it was just the Strike name, the reputation that they had in the Woodlands and Houston area. And I had the opportunity to come over and interview, so I jumped on it. And after the interview, I realized that the people were overall just very nice, and that goes a long way with me. I feel like I'm a nice person and a positive person, and I like to be around that, and I want to be around that because you're the average of the people that you hang out with all day. So I've worked at smaller companies and I've worked at very large companies, and the small companies are great because I feel that you can work your way up very quickly, but processes and support might not necessarily be there. You're wearing a ton of hats, which I think here I am too, but whereas at a large company, where it's a international, worldwide company, you feel like you're kind of a number. There's a lot of bureaucratic, a lot of red tape. There's not a lot of movement. I feel like people can kind of get stuck in different positions and they sit stagnant for a while. And I didn't want that either. I wanted growth potential. So when I came here, I feel like this sits right in the middle. It's not small, it's not massive, but it is a large company. And here there is the support. I get to help with the processes, and you get to see the growth, and also there's people that are willing to help you, and they want you to grow and they want you to succeed, because ultimately if you succeed, they succeed, Strike succeeds. So and people here are positive. They're outgoing. They have hobbies. They're not just necessarily focused on work. They have a life outside of work as well, and that's very important to me too. That while you're at work, work hard, but when you go home, you can turn that off for the most part and focus on family or fun or hobbies, whatever it is that you're into. And but then you come back on Monday and people are happy to be here. So I really enjoy that part of it.
Yeah, for me, when Strike is not my first employer. When I first started out of school, I actually worked for a pipeline operating company that actually operated pipelines for customers instead of building them. And I had worked there for a good 8 years, and we're going through a buyout from a much larger corporation out of Canada. And over the last 18 months that I was with Spectre Energy or Enbridge, I had kind of gotten stale where I was. I'd kind of lost that drive and motivation to kind of keep things moving, trucking along. And while I was there, I was fortunate enough to have grown some really good business relationships with some people, and Strike had about 2 years beforehand, it had kicked off this EPC group, and really we're starting to get it going, and gaining some steam. And they asked me to come over, and I had to really just jump at the opportunity to jump on board, because I wanted to help build a successful business unit for this company. I had previous experiences with Strike and some of its other divisions as far as fabrication and stuff like that. So I was already familiar with the Strike name and their reputation, and I was really excited to come over. And 4 years later, here I am. We're still continuing to grow this business and keep things moving forward. It's while it's a challenging time in our industry, we're looking at alternate opportunities and learning opportunities. So that's really what's kind of keeping me going right now, is learning and enjoying the people that I work with too.
So when I interviewed at Strike that same week, I interviewed somewhere else. And after both interviews, I knew I would work at Strike over the other position, no matter what, no matter if they offered more money, it didn't matter. For me, it was really the people and just the company as a whole. I could tell that Strike was a company that cared about their people. And like Lisa said earlier, the volunteer opportunities really was attractive to me. That was something that I loved, a company that would give back. And I really asked myself, after the interviews, what group of people would I rather work with day to day? And hands down, it was the Strike group of people. Picturing myself working with the other people I interview with, it sounded like I would not be happy Monday through Friday. So yeah, for me, it was really just the company as a whole and the people who are here. I think everyone's kind of touched on that. It's just, great people. You definitely want to work somewhere where you can have decent people to work with.
Hi, Albert. Thanks for joining us today. If you wanted to give kind of a quick introduction on yourself, kind of the role that you play within Strike, your education background, and the question that we had from a student is, why did you select to work with Strike as opposed to the other oil companies that are here locally?
As you said, my name is Albert Garza. I'm originally from Corpus. My education is an associate's in occupational safety and health. And so that's what I do for the company. While working for the company, I was able to go 100% online to Texas A&M Commerce and earn my bachelor's in management. Strike was one of the reasons that I was able to, or that I chose Strike, was they gave me the ability to earn that online degree by giving me the laptop, giving me the time, and understanding that if I'm able to work on my assignments from school while I'm out on the right of way, or while I'm out at one of the job sites during a downtime, I can do that. So that was a big push for me to be able to continue my education. And prior to Strike, I worked for a few oil field companies. They all, kind of did the same job, but pipeline was new to me. So I wanted to expand my knowledge and learn more about a different phase in the oil process, and pipeline was intriguing to me.
Awesome. Thanks for joining us. So we had another question come in from a student. What do you consider to be your biggest achievement so far? And that can be within your role at Strike, or if there was something previous that you would like to share. Now, but we're not going in any order, so we are just kind of unmuting and going. You're welcome to start, but you don't have to. I didn't want you to feel like I was directing that right at you.
Right now, my current biggest achievement is being promoted to the accounts payable manager after working here for 8 years. I started in this department, and when I started, there was, I think, 6 of us, and then we grew to the 20, and then we downsized again to less. And I, stuck it out, learned everything that I could. And then when the manager that I had for the 8 years I was here decided to take another opportunity, I interviewed for the position and I got the position. So I, stuck it out through tough times, through, the oil drops, all of the bad times in the economy, through COVID, through all of this. And so after all of that, sticking it through and working, I was promoted to manager of the department. And, I came in with a bunch of knowledge because I did work on learning everything that I could.
I would say in work here, I don't necessarily have one huge accomplishment or achievement. I feel like I have quite a few smaller, but ultimately large. So I'm a very competitive person, and when we go to pursue different opportunities with different companies, we're always competing, and we're competing sometimes with 3 or 4 companies, and sometimes we're competing with up to 15 different companies, and to me, they're all smart, they're all capable, and you put a lot of time and a lot of effort into what we're doing, and I feel that when you do get the receipt that you won that, there's a lot of work coming that's coming your way after you get the award, because then you have to get ready for the construction side of it and all the planning that goes along with it. But getting that initial reward when you are competing against so many people, it really kind of has that feel of competing in sports or competing in some sort of academia, to where just that overall feeling that you've accomplished and you won, and now the work begins. It's fun and it's exciting. So I would say winning big projects is very exciting and very motivating, and it just definitely drives you to keep going and keep pushing and keep achieving.
Yeah, I think mine's kind of very similar to Patrick's. Back when COVID first started, early 2020, a lot of clients weren't really doing a whole lot of work, and I had recently taken over one of our operating units in our group, and one of the very first, I had done a numerous number of bids and proposals for clients, and we had one come in that we worked tirelessly on for about 6 or 7 weeks, constantly going back and forth, and ultimately, we were selected by the client to do that project. That was a huge accomplishment for us, especially during the COVID times, where a lot of companies were really struggling to win work. And here we were winning a large pipeline job amidst a global pandemic. So that was one of my biggest accomplishments, was achieving that, and keeping a lot of our folks here in my group, at work.
I think my biggest accomplishment professionally here within Strike is just I worked very hard when I got into the client contracts position to establish a lot of relationships with our field and our operations side of things for the specific brands that I manage. And for me, always my biggest kind of like proud moment is knowing how much I do like on the back end to be helpful to them and keep the operations side of things going. I always try my best to be helpful and help them get everything that they need to like keep things going on projects, or getting supplies or vendors, or satisfying asks or needs from the client. So that always kind of makes me pretty happy about what I do, is getting to help other people and essentially help, kind of keep our business going and get them everything that they need.
Yeah, and to go along with helping people, one of the main reasons why I joined EHS, Environmental Health and Safety, was to keep everybody going home safely. The biggest thing is, my family, we come from a big oil field refinery background, and the biggest thing was, sometimes people don't come home, or sometimes people come home with with less digits. That's a big one. And digits being, fingers, toes, limbs. The biggest accomplishment or biggest achievement was helping keep our safety record down, and not necessarily to zero, but to keep everybody going home. Everybody's gone home, and it's a big achievement, both in that score and by the little things. So the one time somebody forgets a hard hat, it's a little achievement, just to say, hey, look, stop, put on your hard hat, because you never know if that same person was gonna bump their head on something and just get a little abrasion, get a little bruise. That's a little achievement, a little goal, a little reward that I get from here at Strike.
I would say for me, after a year of working here, I was promoted to the payroll lead on my team, which basically just the lead of the team. And that was a nice achievement, but I feel like my greatest achievement has being able to be in that role and what I've been able to bring to my team in that role. I think I've just been good at being a good motivator to the team. There are definitely a lot of introverts in our department because we are at our desk a lot. So just being able to kind of bring the introverts out of their shell a little bit, I guess. So yeah, just being able to fulfill that position that they trusted and promoted me to, I'd say has been my greatest achievement at Strike.
Great, thank you guys. So I want to ask a question just based off some of the things that you guys said, and I want to make sure, I think it's one that can go across whether you work in the oil and gas, whether you work in healthcare, especially over the last year, but do you have any advice for, and I've worked in an oil company before, I've got family that are kind of in those fields and the ups and downs, and again, I think it can be related to many industries, but what advice do you have for students if they kind of choose to enter into an industry that maybe isn't as like consistent, or they have the ups and downs of whether it be COVID, natural disasters, weather, safety, whatever it may be, kind of what advice you guys have from your standpoint within the role that you have for anybody that, does that question make sense? I'm trying to not like.
Oh, I think it does. I think that definitely master your craft. Do the best you can. Always study. Always learn. Don't ever be above learning. Be confident in yourself. Don't be scared. And I say that. Don't be fearful. Don't be fearful to say that you don't know the answer, and don't be fearful to say that I'm the guy that, or the person, sorry, that is willing to try. If somebody needs volunteers, volunteer, but also have hobbies outside of work. Still be into things, still dream. I feel like a lot of people, as they get older, lose that ability to dream just because work gets stressful or life gets stressful, and it does, but ultimately you can still have fun with it. You can still enjoy life and still enjoy learning things outside of work, because you never know when that hobby could turn into a potential revenue stream, or somebody could say, I really like what you're doing there, you're good at it, and maybe that could be something that can lead to something larger. So I would say be diverse, be open-minded, travel, go see things, and just stay positive with it and have fun.
Yeah, and
sorry, go ahead. Yeah, just to kind of piggyback off of what Patrick said, having that balance and having interests it's you have to have it. Like, you have to have sanity. You can't just all be about work. Like, you know, we're human. Like, it's just, you have to kind of diversify things. But also in an oil and gas industry, anybody who's worked in it will tell you there is an ebb and flow. There is a boom and bust to the oil industry all the time. There are phases to it, right? Like, so also planning and having your backup plan and your plan B, having that financial stability, having, money in your savings account should, you meet a layoff. That's really important. Also, in addition to like saving money, like diversifying your money, being able to have the knowledge and experience and know how to invest that money so it makes money for you. And then to Patrick's point again, not being fearful about things that you think may challenge you. So for instance, when I interviewed for this job, as I said previously, I don't have any formal education. The job description said I was supposed to have a 4-year bachelor's degree, 6 years in paralegal or paralegal certification, at least 5 years in upstream. I had none of that. And I interviewed for this job, and purely based on 2 very important things, which were I had common sense and I had a very dedicated work ethic that they could see, not only from my resume, but also just in speaking to me in person. So definitely not being fearful of things that you think aren't qualified for, but that you think you could learn. Because like I said, I would have never pictured myself being in a legal group. I would have never pictured myself doing what I was doing now, especially coming from an offshore engineering background. And then, transitioning into this, it was a huge challenge, but the people that hired me believed that I had enough knowledge and skills that they wanted to invest their time in me, building me for this position. And so I think it's just really important, like Patrick said, not to be fearful and to try different things and to try new things. And you just never know what really could work out for you long term. Go ahead, Albert, now that I interrupted you.
Yeah, so I'd say, just like Patrick, I think said, is to learn as much as you can, especially here within the safety department. We always get different people with different backgrounds. If you can be a safety person in one type of industry, you can also be a safety person in a different industry. My thinking would kind of be most skills are learned. If you can learn to do something, you can probably make a living doing it. Now, talent is something else that everybody might not be a professional baseball player, a professional football player. That's natural talent. But you can always learn how to play football. You can learn how to play baseball. And that goes the same with different job roles. And also living outside of the job gives you an amazing opportunity to learn the way different people talk, different acronyms, that they use, so that if you go into a room where somebody is, in my point, if they're not a safety guy and I start throwing OSHA regulations at you, if we would have, we would have played golf, we would have went to a car show, and I mentioned it one time, well, then if you go visit another person and they're a safety person, you're not out of the conversation. So the more people the more diverse you get to grow your community, the more able you are to enter into different circles, and that just opens up so many doors.
I personally, I can't add anything additional than what everybody else has said. They have pretty much hit on everything that I would have added in. I think the one thing that I can recommend is to always come in, do your best, try your hardest. Don't be afraid to fail. Everybody's going to make mistakes. It's the learning opportunities that come with those that help you grow. I think just coming in, working your hardest, giving it your all is one of the biggest things that I can throw out there. I know, on our side, on the engineering and procurement and construction side, that's what it's about, is giving it your all and making sure you do your best.
Great, thank you guys. So Albert, I had a question for you, just because I don't think we've ever, at least this summer and pretty much all the panels, I don't know that we've ever had kind of safety and health represented as a department or as a career. Can you kind of said that kind of once you're in this department, at one company, it kind of can be similar to others, but what kind of, is there training or kind of what experiences or where can students learn more, or if that's something that they've heard you and that might be something that they want to add in as something to explore?
Yep, absolutely. So I went to a community college that it mainly gave a trade, educations. One of them was occupational safety and health. The other one that I originally went to was RTFC, which is Refinery Terminal Firefighter. And at that time, my instructor said, would you rather put out a fire or would you rather prevent a fire? So if you rather prevent a fire, go to safety. So that's how I started. And that education that I got there was very broad. From Corpus Christi, it was a little bit geared toward industrial safety, but everything that we touched on dealt in all different kinds of safety. So medical field, oil and gas, regular, if any company that has 10 plus people normally has a safety HR kind of person. And as far as training, I would definitely look at those smaller schools. There are a few online schools that you're able to go to. Another great place to go to is OSHA.gov. They have some trainings that are recognized in the industry, in the oil and gas industry specifically. There is another organization called the Board of Certified Safety Professionals, or BCSP, and it's bcsp.org. They have safety certs that you can get for oil and gas, for hospitals, for radiology, or all different kinds. I would definitely check out bcsp.org, and they have entry-level certs as all the way up until the big top dog kind of certs. Some of them have requirements you have to meet. You either have to get one before the other, or you have to have education to apply for one. But it's a really good organization, bcsp.org, and it's recognized by quite a few employers. Most employers, you're going to see a requirement of some acronym or some letters behind a name, and that's how you can get some of those letters behind your name.
Great, thank you. So one of the things that we talk about in a lot of our programming is the importance of the relationships and the networking and the mentors in professionals' lives that kind of help to be the cheerleaders or help to be the ones that you bounce ideas off of or come to when you're in a fork in the road or anything like that. And so I just kind of wanted to have any of you speak on if you had or have a mentor at some stage of your life that has played an important role in kind of your decision making, and maybe how you came in contact with them or made that relationship.
Yeah, I think mentorship is very, very important. Like I said, I grew up playing sports and playing at a pretty high level, and so I've always had coaches, and I knew at a young age that coaches were important. You learn from them, and you get better at the sport. And the same thing with like my father and mother. They're of course my parents, but they also coached me through life. And so whenever I got into even in college, I had mentors, and a lot of those are teachers and professors. So mentors, I feel that you need to continually grow and adapt, and mentors help you do that. So you can have a mentor that's your age. You can have a mentor that's 10, 20, 30 years older than you. But it's somebody that you can talk to. It's somebody that you can be vulnerable around, and you can tell them your fears, the stuff that you normally wouldn't necessarily tell everybody. But and you can tell them where mentally you're maybe hung up, or there's a roadblock, or whatever it is, and you can just talk through it. So a lot of times I think talking to somebody that's been there and done that is very, very helpful with processing, and I think mentors really, really help. So as far as where you can find them, I've had some at church. I've had some a mentor that I still talk to today that was one of my clients years and years ago, and just a very successful businessman, but a very, quote unquote, cool guy too. And and he's been great, and they can just really help you filter through the noise that can kind of build up in your head, and then all of the media and TV and internet that can really kind of cloud your mind and get you thinking, kind of get you off track about what's important in life. Sometimes having a mentor is great to just talk to just help clear that air and help you stay on track. So yeah, mentors are very, very important in my opinion. That's it.
Yeah. Mentors are extremely important. I feel like at all stages of my life, even where how I told you, I've kind of transitioned and reinvented several times. At each place, I've definitely had somebody who was either in the industry or more experienced than myself that I kind of gravitated to learn more and learn from them. And because, something that somebody who's been in the industry a long time, or even just somebody who's older, they can tell you about a lot of life's pitfalls and they can kind of try to help you avoid those bumps in the road. But something that I think is extremely important to touch on, in addition to, mentors, is really taking a hard look at, who you choose to associate with too. I'm a very strong believer in that, show me who your friends are and I'll show you who you are. So I wanted to just kind of give that advice that I've learned, maybe too late sometimes, that you really want to surround yourself with progressive people and people who are talking about goals and progression and just positivity, and people who kind of really push you to be more than what you are and don't let you stay complacent. I think that's also extremely important, in addition to having good mentorship, is surrounding yourself with good progressive people as well.
When I think of mentors, I think of a lot of my past managers. My first job in high school was Domino's, and my manager really taught me a lot. It might sound a little silly that my Domino's manager taught me a lot, but it's good to have someone who you respect and respects you and can give you feedback. That manager saw strengths in me that I didn't know I had. So to hear from a manager at such a young age what my strengths were, now, many years later, I could see that he was right in those strengths. And a lot of managers since then have helped inspired me to focus on those strengths and kind of really shine. Even, current managers, I think it's really good to build strong relationships with your coworkers and managers, because you spend a lot of time with them, and anyone that you spend a lot of time with can be a mentor. They can be a positive influence. So be open to building relationships, networking, becoming friends with people that you maybe wouldn't think you'd be friends with. You can have mentors in so many different places, but for me, managers have really helped shape me, I think, into who I am and mentored me well. I also would say my dad's been a good mentor just because he works in HR. So it's always nice to know someone who works in HR, on like the professional side, if you need someone to go to help mentor you when it comes to, the professional world.
Yeah, and I kind of touched on it about my instructor, how his reasoning behind the fire and preventing. I would say mentors too. It doesn't have to be one specific person for the rest of your life. It can be one person, one time, that gives you good information, solid advice, one time in your career, and it helps you go this way. And then once you use that mentor, go on to the next one. And once you meet somebody else, you never know if that person's going to be your mentor. So one thing that's definitely helped me, I'm very adamant about, is never burning any bridges. You never know who can help you, who you're going to run into again, and who has something, whether it be knowledge, education, a resource, something that you need. And if you don't burn that bridge, you can always go back and ask them for help, or ask them for their thoughts on anything.
Awesome. Thank you, guys. So we had a question come in, and this might be geared towards engineers. I'm not 100% sure. How do you use a process flow diagram in the field of engineering? I don't know.
I'll go ahead and take this one. So for us, I mean, so the process flow diagram is really kind of your basis for your entire design that you're working on. So like for us, when we're using a process flow diagram, it's going to set the basis for all of our major equipment that we're going to have on site. It's going to set the process flow conditions. So it's going to tell you, you know, what product you're flowing, what pressure, what volume it's being transported at. So, I mean, really we use it as the basis to build all of the rest of the design package off of. So, you know, once you get your PFD set, then you start going into your piping and instrument diagrams, and then you start going into your piping plans and so forth. So really, it's really just that high level summary of the project that you're working on, and using that to move the rest of the project down the line.
I hope that answers. I don't know who sent that in. So if you have.
Does that answer the question?
Yeah, if it didn't, let me know, but I don't know who submitted the question. So thank you. If there was one, what is one transferable skill you recommend the students start to cultivate and learn? And some of you have touched on some things, but I feel like some of them are important to be reiterated, if that's all right with you guys.
The biggest one that I can think of, sorry to cut you off, Patrick, is communication. Yeah, that is like the number one key to really any business that you work in. Being able to not only communicate to others, but also knowing how to listen to others who are you're engaged with. You know, actively listening, not just, you know, hearing the words they're saying, but really paying attention to what they're saying and processing what they're trying to tell you. And, you know, to me, I would say more than 75% of what I do is all based off of communication and being able to, you know, articulate your thoughts and ideas and listen to other people's thoughts and ideas and how you can apply those is key. And it doesn't matter what industry you work in, being able to communicate is going to be one of those things that will greatly benefit no matter what you're doing.
100% what Brian said, communication. And also be a good leader. You have to learn to communicate, but also build people up. I think everybody possesses a certain level of insecurity, but don't put people down, build them up, because if you have a team and you can build them up, your team can accomplish a lot more. I would say be open-minded. Don't funnel everything just through yourself, thinking that I know it all, so it has to come through me. Utilize people's strengths. And a lot of the ways to do that is by building them up, teaching, listening. Listening is a huge one. Listen and learn and absorb and then apply it. And so, yeah, but I would say number one is high level of communication.
To add to what Brian and Patrick said with communication, building strong relationships. If you have strong relationships with your team and your managers and your clients and customers, communication, it's a lot easier if you have those relationships already. Then it's easy to communicate because you have that close working relationship. Also with the leadership, you can be a leader without being a manager or being a supervisor. You can be a leader by just being someone who motivates and offers advice. And if you're a person that people feel comfortable coming to with questions or that they need advice, they're going to view you as a leader. They're going to come to you often and inquire about their questions and everything. So yeah, leadership, communication, they both touched on it. But like I said, with communication, I find it easier to communicate with people that I kind of already have a relationship with. And you can build strong relationships even through phone and email. I have built strong relationships with people I've never met out on the field, but we communicate great because we have an understanding of each other.
Yeah, definitely communication. I'm going to have to go ahead and say that is the number one too. And just to drill down on the communication a little bit, communicating effectively and having enough self-awareness to know that just because it's your way of communicating isn't necessarily the right way to communicate with somebody else. So I did previously have a manager that he was a good manager and I was a good employee, but we were just kind of like always two ships missing each other because the way we communicated with each other just wasn't effective. So communication, learning how to communicate effectively, and then also realizing that if your message isn't getting across either to another person or a subordinate, don't look at the river running through like an obstacle, build a bridge, figure out where the disconnect is, be the problem solver. And then also just having common sense is just so huge in the workplace. And I think it's also always a very just like kind of disregarded simple thing that people don't really think about, but having common sense and having good work ethic, all of those are easily transferable to any industry. And they're key for any industry as well. So.
Thank you, guys. So I wanted to see if anybody would be willing to share, and you guys have talked about kind of learning from your failures. If anybody would be willing to share a time, and we don't need like specific details, but a time that you learned from a failure or had a setback or something, that just to share with our students that professionals are human and that sometimes you've all mentioned it, we have to learn from the things that we go through and the things that don't go the way we planned.
Well, I can tell you on a daily basis, I used to consider myself somewhat of a perfectionist, and then somebody told me there's no such thing as perfect. And when they asked me what was my hang up, I didn't understand what they meant. And ultimately, me being a perfectionist was me just being scared that my overall end product, whatever it is I was trying to produce or accomplish, wasn't going to be perfect enough. And they just said, there's not going to be perfect. So put your effort into it, have confidence, and submit it, turn it in, whatever it may be, to the best of your abilities. But then also be open-minded to any type of criticism that comes, because I think people get so offended about criticism, and ultimately criticism is a good thing. If you can turn that into something constructive, even if it comes at you as negative, there's a certain amount of truth to it, and that's okay. Just don't be offended by the criticism, because ultimately it's just somebody's opinion, and it's okay. So don't be scared to move forward, to turn something in, to submit something, to just give it your all. And I think a lot of times when you're scared to give it your all, because then your all is out in the open, and you're vulnerable, and you're open to being criticized. So just do something to the best of your ability, give it all you have confidence in yourself, and just keep stepping forward. And then when somebody says, well, that part's a little off, or this is wrong, okay, then correct it and move forward. So don't get hung up on the little things, because there's a bunch of little things in life that are just going to come at you. And I think it was Teddy Roosevelt that says, don't make mountains out of molehills. And that just means don't make something larger than it needs to be. But just have confidence and move forward. And that's about all I have on that.
Yeah, that's a great point, Patrick. Honestly, I'll tell you guys about one of my failures here lately. I think it was probably last month. I just had a particular day with a lot of deadlines for a lot of different things that I had to get back to clients. And very embarrassingly, I sent the complete wrong document to a client for a very formal bid submission for one of our biggest clients. And when that client emailed me back and said, you submitted the wrong contract. This was for the last job we awarded you. She also tagged my president of my company. And that guy did not email me. He didn't text me. He picked up the phone and said, explain now. And I was like, I just told the truth. I was like, I was so busy. I must have literally just selected the wrong document in my files and uploaded the absolute wrong thing. I was like, I'll reach out to the client. So I did. I gave her a phone call and I verbally apologized for my oversight. Then I had to go ahead and cover my bases. I put that in writing again in an email like, hey, I apologize. Please see the attached. Here's your correct document. Let me know if you need anything else. And, you know, that's all I could really do. I had to admit not only that I made a mistake, which I don't like to do ever, but it happens. And also had to explain myself to upper management and just be honest with them about how and why I made the mistake. And then also come up with a mitigation plan of like a checks and balances for myself to prevent myself from making that mistake again. Because I think learning from your mistakes is very important too. So like Patrick said, you know, being able to accept criticism is also very key. Don't, even if the person criticizing you means it in a negative way, you can always turn that into something positive for yourself instead of, you know, letting that 2 minutes affect the other 24 hours of your day. So that's my failure story.
Yeah, I've definitely failed. Like Lisa said, just own up to it sooner rather than later as well. I've had to go to my boss and tell her I've actually voided a ticket before, which we're not supposed to do. And so just own up to it, be honest, be open with the constructive criticism. Just remember that that is usually meant to help you. Don't take it so personal. Definitely take it personal in the aspect that you're going to learn from it and grow from it. But everyone fails. It's not the end of the world. Just learn from it. And like they've pretty much already said, they've touched on a lot of really good points. Just own up to it and learn from your mistakes.
Yeah, I have one too. Early in my career, I would lead safety meetings. It ranged from 50 to 100 to 1,000 people, and you know, talk in front of them. And at times, I would say something wrong, and it wasn't until after the meeting that I realized, or somebody came up to me and said, "Hey, did you mean this?" And that's when I was, you know, thinking in my head like, "Oh, that's not what I meant at all." So I'd have to be proactive, and I couldn't call everybody back, but I could send out communications to whoever I could and tell them, this is what I said, this is what I meant, please disregard. And I had to learn that once you say something, you know, it's always out there, and people are going to remember what you said. And so I just learned to be prepared with what I'm going to say and what I'm going to tell, especially during safety meetings. And then more recently, I send communications out company wide, and it goes to a couple thousand people, closer to maybe 1,000 people. But recently I made a typo, and a few people called me out on it. And so I was needing to find out, how can I correct this typo? And it just took an effort of proofreading my document more and rereading it. And if I could have somebody else proofread it, but definitely be able to accept that criticism and be humiliated. You know, you're going to make mistakes. People are going to realize that you made a mistake, and just own up to it, and don't let it ruin your day. Don't let it ruin your week. Just, you know, recognize it, correct it, and move on.
Great. Thank you guys for sharing. We had one more question come in, and we'll do this one and then we'll wrap with one. Where do you see your job in the next 5 to 10 years? Maybe in kind of some of the changes that are coming or that you foresee?
Definitely, I see oil and gas is still going to be here, for a long time. 5 to 10 years. Safety is always going to be around. Um, Specific regulations or codes might change depending on government agencies, local agencies. But at least in the next, 5 to 10 years, there's going to be a change in the oil and gas energy specific industry. But a lot of the other industries work off of that as well, especially with this technology booming. There's going to be quite a few changes, and what I would recommend to help fight or combat those changes is just recognize them and don't shoo them away. Don't try to live in the past. Always be looking forward to what can happen and how you can adapt and be ready for that change.
Agreed. I think change is inevitable. It's kind of the only constant we have is change because everything is constantly changing. So I think just with technology and robotics and AI technology and all these different things that are just continuing to evolve, the way we do things is going to evolve. So I would say be open-minded, be on the progressive side of that. Don't be too stuck in your ways. Of course, have your set values and things like that. But as far as what it's going to look like for us, I would say it's probably going to be somewhat similar to what we're doing now, but just an increase in, like I said, the AI and the robotics side of it. But there's always going to be a very human component to it. So we'll see. It'll be we just got to be flexible and keep moving forward. So that's kind of my 2 cents.
Yeah, I same as Patrick and Albert, I don't foresee the oil and gas industry going away. I think it's also a very important industry for people to have. Me personally, in 5 to 10 years, I think honestly within legal, I have kind of found my niche. I was interested, like back in elementary school, I always said I wanted to be a lawyer, and then somehow I ended up in this, and I don't think that that's by chance. So I'm still not 100% sure if I want to go to law school. So to try and kind of dip my toe in, I'm currently going to school full time at UHD, doing some paralegal courses and certification. And that's, my next step in my career. And I think maybe even a personal goal, maybe I might go to law school. I don't know. But that's just the thing, is that it doesn't have to be set in stone. I can change my mind, and this is what is interesting me right now. And so I definitely I do have a passion for the oil and gas industry. I don't foresee myself leaving this industry, so definitely staying within legal and then staying in the oil and gas sector is very much where I see myself the next 5 to 10 years plus.
Great, thank you. All right, and we're getting close to time, so we'll wrap with, what is that one piece of advice you wish you could go back and tell your high school self or young college self?
I would say it's okay that if you don't know what you want to do, because I really stressed about that when I was in high school. So it's okay if you don't know what you want to major in. Just take basic classes while you figure it out. It's also okay to change your mind with what you're doing. Like I've said, I was in a completely different career path before strike and completely changed career paths, and I don't regret it at all. So yeah, I would just say it's okay if you don't know what you want to do, because you have time to figure it out.
I would say don't be so critical towards yourself and also towards others. You're not going to know everything, and that's okay. And enjoy the ride. Pick up as many things as you can along the way. Set goals and set short-term goals. Achieve them. The long-term goals, you'll get there, and maybe those long-term goals change. Be flexible. Don't worry so much about what people think of you, and just have confidence in yourself and enjoy the ride.
Yeah, definitely that. Also, be happy, prioritize, mental health, that's just as important. And, just people don't understand how much, your career or your job can impact that. But if you really consider it, you spend the bulk of your time, at your job as an adult. So doing something that you actually take an interest in, working with people that you get along with, and having it like a positive environment, prioritizing your mental health just as much as, financial stability and, having a good career, like all of those things are very important. And definitely, I think one thing I wish I would have listened to as a teenager was just kind of like, accepting more of my parents' help and guidance. I will say that I know that's unpopular opinion as a teenager, but I can honestly tell you, I was a rule breaker, and, my parents kicked me out at 16, and it took me twice as long to get where I wanted to be in life. Whereas had I just kind of followed a curfew and a few little rules to have all of that extra financial help and guidance from them, I would have gotten here a lot faster. So I definitely wish I wasn't as hard-headed. So if I can save any of you from any of those rocky roads, like, again, unpopular opinion that sometimes your parents are right, but sometimes they're right.
Yeah, I think one of the things that I look back on, as I graduated from college and started working in the industry, was trying to establish that work-life balance. When I first started in, I wanted to do everything. I came in guns blazing and wanted to learn all I wanted to learn and everything. But I got to a point where, I hadn't taken a day off in 2 years. And, having, young kids at home right after I got married, right after I graduated from school. And, I lost sight of being home and spending time with my family, and taking time for yourself too. So for me, it's a work-life balance. Your job's going to be there, but it really, for me, my family became more important to me, and just trying to learn to balance your life out and not just work all the time.
Yeah, I'd say something that we touched on earlier was also networking. Networking's huge, especially when you're early. You never know who's going to go where. So your colleagues, the people in your class, your friends that meet up, at Whataburger, hang out at nighttime or whatever. You never know where those people are going to go and where those careers are going to go, when they might be able to help you. So network, make relationships, and make good relationships, and never be scared to ask for help.
Yeah, networking, and also not judging a book by its cover when you meet people. Because I will tell you that, we've got 2 of our 3 presidents of our companies are very grassroots. So if you were to see those guys on the streets, they're wearing jeans, t-shirt, boots, you would never know they're like own 13 companies and, half of a county, and we're millionaires. So be kind to people, treat people like people, and have conversations and learn about their backgrounds before you pass judgment. Like, in addition to just networking, is also really key.
Great. Well, thank you guys. I think that was a great way to end, and we appreciate you guys joining us this morning. Students, I know we can't see you, but if you can help me thank our panelists from Strike for joining us today. We really appreciate you guys taking time to say yes, to answer our students' questions, share about your career, your journey, the things you've learned along the way, in hopes to kind of just get the students to take notes, think about things in the future, they remember, oh, I remember that one person said that one thing on that panel through, I don't remember what that program was. It'll happen later on, students. So we appreciate you guys investing your time with us today. And we're going to snap a staged photo really quick, but just want to thank you guys. Students, thank you for joining us. At this time, you are dismissed. If you have mentor calls going on, please join those now. And we will see you guys back for the last couple of sessions today and tomorrow.